Welcome
to Film Shapes.
The podcast.
Okay. What happened there? Yes, I think I could cut that. That's all right. That's what I thought you were going to crack out then.
No, why would I do that?
Oh, because maybe you're as immature as me? No? Okay.
We were talking about a lot more money than this.
There are more of us to be taken care of now.
Well, that may be, but I've got the Falcon.
You may have the Falcon, but we certainly have you.
I've taken a little riding from you I'm gonna take. Get up and shoot it out.
Stop it, the police will be here any minute. Now talk.
Oh, how can you accuse me of such a terrible...
This isn't the time for that schoolgirl act with both of us sitting under the gallows.
Hello and welcome to the 6th episode of You Mean You Haven't Seen? And this week's film is the 1941 John Huston classic, The Maltese Falcon. It's hello to Roly.
Hello.
And hello to Parizad.
Hiya.
How you going, guys?
Great.
All
Pretty good.
Great. So, now, neither of you had seen this, is that right?
I hadn't seen it before.
No, I had not seen it.
Okay. So, Roly, tell me, what did you think of this?
Look, it was a bit of fun.
Mm-hmm.
What did I think of it? It's I didn't think a great deal of it, actually. I'm not sure I'm meant to think too much of it, am I? Watching this film?
I don't know. I mean, did you enjoy it?
Film, for the most part, yeah, I think I enjoyed it, but
Okay.
it wasn't. It didn't blow me away.
Why do you think it's considered a classic then?
I think probably for its day, it was potentially quite a clever film, but it seemed like since then a lot of the tropes have been quite well worn, so it was very familiar, even though I hadn't seen it before. All the ideas in it,
yeah, it's about 80 years old now, I suppose, isn't it?
Oh God, that's crazy.
Parizad, what did you think?
Yeah, I had a very similar experience to Roly. I enjoyed it. I had fun watching it. Some parts of it have not aged well. Oh, yeah. But like, I was looking before I watched it. I was having a look on Google, and it's got like 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. And at the end of the film, I just, I enjoyed it. I had fun, but I did not understand, and I still don't understand the hype behind it. But I can imagine that when it came out, it was revolutionary. But I don't understand why it still has that hype, if that makes sense.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, that's a funny one. I would come down closely to that theory as well. Watching it again, I've probably seen this 4 or 5 times, I guess. And yeah, it doesn't. I was wondering what's all the fuss about, really? I mean, compare this to Casablanca, which was made a year later. That's for me a much more iconic and superior film.
Another one I haven't seen.
Ooh, okay. You mean you haven't seen Casablanca? Yeah, I don't know. It's very, very talky, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and I've got to confess, I probably, maybe it's something to do with the complexity of the plot and all the ins and outs, and I'm not sure I even fully grasped all of that in the first watch. And I thought it was a little strange, or maybe it's a feature, I don't know, but there was there's a certain segment of exposition in this film which is kind of towards the end from the Gutman character.
Right.
Where he kind of explains quite a lot in this maybe 10-minute scene.
Yes.
And I got a little lost there, but I thought, this is a bit strange having so much exposition at the back end, instead of the beginning.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's almost totally exposition, this film, isn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say that. It's something I noticed is that I was watching it, and basically the entire film is just dialogue. There isn't really a whole lot else that happens. It's all exposition through dialogue. But it kind of reminded me of really like the old school detective novels I used to enjoy reading and still enjoy reading, like the Agatha Christie's and things, where it really comes down to character and interactions between them. But the difference is, in a novel, I can take my time reading the dialogue and absorbing it. Whereas in this, it felt like they were, I don't know if it was just me, but it really felt like they were speeding through their lines.
Yeah.
And so half the time I missed what they were saying, and I only just caught like snatches of it.
Well, yeah. I mean, on that, I've got a little confession to make. I had to rewind the very beginning because I wasn't listening to O'Shaughnessy, Mary Astor's character, explaining stuff to Bogart because I was watching him light his fucking cigarette with that weird. What was that thing? I was trying to work out what
the
that
cigarette
was
lighter.
No, did you see what was it? Didn't you notice that?
I must have
like,
been
and he
too focused
pressed
on
down
listening.
into it. I don't know what it was, but I liked it. It looked fun.
The press. It's like a match. I don't even know if it's a match, but they'd press in and a spark would start or create a spark and then
He
a
was
flame,
lighting
and
it
pull it out.
himself, was he?
Yeah, and I think later
Why
he's
wouldn't he just get his secretary to do that for him?
well, later she did that actually, but with the same thing. But
That's
yeah,
kind of the theme of the.
but then he puts it out, right? And he put it into another section of that contraption. It was great. Like, I'm not even a smoker, but that was cool. And I was watching that thinking, how the hell's that working? And then I had to go, I didn't hear any of that. Let's go back and rewind it. Quite unprofessional.
I think the tobacco companies would have loved this film.
Yes.
And to have a star. Was he, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he was more of a minor star before this film. Is that right? This film was maybe one of the ones that really pushed him up to the next level.
Yes, I think he was starring in lots of George Raft films, I guess, in the 30s. But yeah, was this his first big film, I guess, maybe?
Yeah, because I thought before then he was more of a supporting actor.
Yeah. I think he'd been around the traps a bit, but yeah, this was one of his early leads, I think. Yeah, you're right. And actually, it was John Huston's first directorial debut. Thank you. He'd written a lot of films before, Huston, but this was his first stab at directing. So, a pretty good start for a big film like this at the time, anyway. So.
I mean, do you think people would have been saying, "Oh, wasn't it clever the way it all moved in? You didn't know, and you thought this was going to happen, and then you find out it was someone else." And
well, I wonder if anyone had. Well, I'm sure lots of people had, but it was a Dashiell Hammett book, so maybe. And actually, this is the third rendition, can I say? The third film based on that book. So I wonder if it was already in the public consciousness. Not sure.
Another thing that struck me about this one was it's a great example of the MacGuffin, isn't it? Isn't it?
Yeah.
The
Being the
MacGuffin object.
Yes. Is it though? I was thinking about this. Go on, explain yourself.
Well, it's that object of a film that appears at the beginning of the story generally, and then I think it often largely gets kind of forgotten about, or maybe not even seen, but it tends to influence a lot of the plot while kind of remaining in the background.
I think that's fair.
At the end.
So it's a plot driver, basically. It drives. It's the reason people are doing something. But then, wouldn't most films have a MacGuffin in them? Something that drives the plot? Or are you specifically?
But we're talking about a literal object, right?
Okay. Yeah, it has to be a physical object, I think. I guess it could be something else, but there's definitely a lot of examples of it.
I don't know. This is a little naive, but I always thought the MacGuffin was less integral, but it seemed like it was at the beginning. Like towards the end of the film, it's just completely marginalised, whereas this thing is still, like, everyone's still after this.
Well, in a way, though, the fact that not to spoil the film for anyone.
It's 80 years old, dude. It's 80 years old. What are you talking about? Don't worry about it, mate. Just go ahead.
The fact that the MacGuffin turns out to be not what it was thought to be, maybe gives it some more credibility to be called the MacGuffin.
Here's another question for you. MacGuffin and red herring, same things or different?
I thought a red herring was meant to be something that purposely throws you off track.
Yeah.
Yep.
So MacGuffins can do that, I suppose, but they don't usually. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a red herring, I mean, couldn't that just be a line from someone as well? Not a.
Yeah, I suppose it could be.
Doesn't have to
But
be a recurring.
I'm thinking of something like the briefcase in Pulp Fiction. That's a MacGuffin or a red herring?
MacGuffin.
You think? It's a mysterious MacGuffin, isn't it?
Oh, well, but it doesn't necessarily... Oh, no, it does drive... I haven't seen Pulp Fiction for a long time, but it does kind of drive the rest of the film to some extent, doesn't it? What's in the briefcase is the motivation for...
I suppose that... I don't...
action.
I'm not... No, I don't want to spoil Casablanca for Parizad, but there's a central... There's a central... I think they're
It's
after...
okay, I'm sure I'll cope.
They're after some papers to get out of Casablanca, and everyone's looking for these things. So it's similar to the Maltese Falcon in that case, that a lot of people are focused on that particular item. So I guess that's the MacGuffin there. Yeah, interesting. But yeah, you're right. It's all centered around that thing. It's the stuff that dreams are made of, as Bogey says at the end there. Yeah. Bogey plays Spade as a bit of an asshole here, doesn't he?
Yeah, I would say so.
Well, he
Would you
turns out to
agree?
be a bit of a dibber-dobber as well at the end. And a goody
dibber-dobber.
two-shoes.
What fucking...
Oh, God,
how
I
old are
haven't
you?
heard that term since
Dibber-dobber,
primary
goody
school.
two-shoes.
Jesus, dibber-dobber. Goody two-shoes. All right, yeah, you're right.
I was a little surprised.
For
Really?
me, that was his redeeming feature.
Mm.
I very much did not like his character through more or less the bulk of the film until
Right.
the very end, where he finally, put his foot down, was like, well, actually, no, I am just going to turn you over.
Yeah, okay. You were thinking he might not have at that point?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the idea of the film was to set it up so that you believed that he was wheeling and dealing and was planning to, run off with the money or whatever. But I believed it. I didn't think he had any real intention of solving his partner's murder, because he didn't really seem to care about his partner all that much.
Well, he was on the missus, wasn't he? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, which... Let's talk about that plotline for a second. Why was that there? It was so completely non-integral to the entire thing.
Oh, well, I think it was the motive for why he might be a suspect.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. And possibly for a reason he didn't really care that Archer was killed necessarily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also,
But yeah, it is a bit iffy.
You can't have a male hero in the film and not having him sort of betting every lady that
No, just here's a good point. I don't know. Let's get your opinions on this. I thought Mary Astor's character, O'Shaughnessy, was a pretty strong and independent kind of female character for those times there, even though she's, a bit of a wrong'un. What do you guys think about that? O'Shaughnessy.
Yeah. I would... Yeah, for its time, for the 1940s, I'd agree with that. But see, that's the thing. You could only have a strong female character in those times if they were playing the villain, which turns out she was all along. But that you kind of got to make allowances for the time that it was made in.
Yeah.
And I certainly wouldn't expect it to be quite the same as how we would treat female characters today. But
No, you'd...
yeah, I thought reasonably strong and definitely independent, but also with that kind of those overtones of you can only be a strong and independent woman if you are deceitful and manipulative and all that usual crap.
Yeah, and also she was set up as looking for a benefactor all the time, right? So she
Yeah.
called that, she had Thursby done away with, but she needed more support in a male form. So, yeah, not as independent as I guessed,
Yeah.
really. Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. For its time, not bad.
Yeah. I mean, there are better examples of that than in the 40s.
She was
or even-
basically. It was nice because she was the quote unquote damsel in distress, but she was doing that on purpose.
Yeah.
As opposed to actually being a damsel in distress.
Yeah,
More
true.
of a manipulator, I guess. But yeah, there was that kind of uncomfortable moment where she says, "Oh, I think it's her, isn't it?" Yeah, she. Oh, what else can I buy you with then?
Yeah, and he just outright
And he just
kisses
grabs
her.
her face.
Oh,
Like,
I
that
had
was-
to hide under the blankets.
Yeah, I think that was probably the worst one in it, though, for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The rest was kind of okay, but yeah, even just them talking about love and things at the end. I mean, he was. Yeah, I just didn't really buy that.
That didn't. Yeah,
No.
that didn't sell. I mean, yeah,
He's known
it
as
was.
Well, how long? What is the time period in this? It feels like it's maybe 3 days only, or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah, I'd
two-
say
two
so.
or
A
3
few days.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit. That's hard to believe, really. At the end, I think. Yeah. How about some of the dialogue in this? Some of the old timey dialogue.
Oh, well, it's good to see an original where I always think of it from Seinfeld, but it was the slip to Mickey.
Right.
You know that one?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's old. That's reasonably common in these kind of films, I think. This isn't, though. I'd never heard this before. Remember when he's talking to the cops in his bedroom, and he says, "Then you birds cracking foxy." What the hell? You
Oh,
birds
yeah.
cracking foxy.
You got me
What's
there.
that mean? Yeah.
No
okay.
idea.
There's get your paws off me, which makes sense, I guess.
Yeah.
There's a great line where he's talking to O'Shaughnessy, and he says, "We didn't exactly believe your story, Miss O'Shaughnessy. We believed you $200. I mean, you paid us more than if you'd been telling us the truth, and enough more to make it all right."
Yeah. There are
Yeah, I
good
quite
lines.
liked that.
I also like Gutman's one is a man that likes talking to a man that likes to talk.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, sorry. I'll go there.
Yeah, he's right. He's saying, I like the fact that you don't say when you're getting a drink, because if a man who doesn't is worried about saying more than he needs to when he's drinking, means he's got something to hide when he's not, or something. There was a lot of talk.
Yeah,
around, wasn't there?
there's a lot of doublespeak.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
audiences would have been laughing a lot more in the cinema, wouldn't they? Seeing this film,
probably.
We
Yeah.
probably were.
Oh, tell you what though, do you guys remember that scene where Spade first encounters Cairo
Yes.
in his office?
Mm.
Okay.
Oh, I proper belly laughs there.
Well,
Particularly when, I mean, not when he gets disarmed, but at the very end of the scene where Cairo's like, "May I please have my gun back now?" And then he immediately goes back to sticking him up.
yeah. And Bogart loses it then too. Like, oh yeah, all right, what am I going to do? Yeah. This is interesting. This now I kind of noticed this earlier when I was younger watching this, but it didn't really sink in. But have you noticed how they deal with homosexuality in this film?
Through Joe Cairo's accent, is that
Not just
And Gutman as well, did you think?
Well, I mean, it could have been a cornucopia of homosexuality. I'm not sure
I guess so.
because okay, so Cairo is, when she brings in the card and he sniffs it and he says,
Yeah.
"Gardenia." Oh, this is scented. This guy must be a bit of he must be fruity in those days, So
Yeah.
that's clear. And he comes in, he's very neatly dressed, and he's got a cane and all this. I think his accent's neither here nor there, but because he's Hungarian anyway, Austrian Hungarian. So and he's had that accent all his life. So yeah, it's just there are certain things like when he slaps him, he says, when you're slapped, you'll take it and like it," almost like he's he's a masculine idiot talking to a woman that he's slapping. You're like, yeah, it's very weird. But this bit I didn't notice when they're dealing with how to get out of the mess, and Bogart's trying to tell them to put the younger fella in the hot seat. Yeah, Wilmer. He says, well, okay, let's try this. Let's give him the gunsel. And I was like, what the hell is this? I didn't really focus on that until I've done a bit of reading. Gunsel apparently is a slang term for young homosexual male who is probably in a relationship with an older dude.
So you reckon Wilmer and Gutman?
Or Wilmer and Cairo.
Cairo.
Okay.
Probably. But
yeah,
it seems strange. Like, I thought when he said, let's give him the gunsel, and I think he said that word twice, and like that means Bogey's completely aware of what kind of guy he is, but I thought it was like a gun thing, gunslinger or a gunman, you know. But apparently, no, it means, it's from the Yiddish Genzel for little goose, or something like this. Or the German gunslein for gosling. So yeah, it seems like they're in the book. Apparently, he's clearly homosexual. Cairo is anyway.
Okay.
But in the film, they're not allowed to because of that Hays Code from the 30s, where you weren't allowed to refer to things like that. So yeah, it's interesting how they got around that.
I would not have picked up his accent as being Hungarian.
What do you mean? What do you mean, Roly?
What is that? What is that?
That is Hungarian. That's how he speaks all the time. That's terrible, isn't it?
That sounds like a bad Mexican accent.
Yeah, right. No. He was in Casablanca 2 with the same accent. He was in M from the 31 or 32, I think, for Fritz Lang, which was, I guess, his breakout film. But yeah, he's always spoken that way. Imagine if off screen he just talked like you or I, perhaps. I mean, not Australian, but
that's what I'm wondering. Was that his real accent? Or was that him, the actor, trying to put on an accent?
Was he just typecast it? You can only get the part if you do that accent, you know.
Well, he did play Mr. Moto. Is that the character? Like a Chinese detective in the 30s. So I'm assuming he pulled. Yeah, I'm assuming he pulled very odd accent for that one. I haven't seen any of those films, and I'm kind of loath to, actually. But...
Yeah. I think that would be more cringeworthy than this one.
Yeah. And they sort of darkened him up a bit for this film, too, do you reckon? You could see sort of like a spray tan on him or something?
Well, I have no idea what that actor looks like normally. Hang on.
Usually not that dark, I would have guessed. But yeah.
I was meaning to mention, did you notice any sync issues with the voices? There was just a couple of scenes where the voice seemed to be out of sync with the visual.
No, I didn't notice that, but I noticed a couple of jump cuts. Like there's a couple of points where they've just cut to a wider camera angle, and Bogart, for example, is one step back from the cop, whereas the exact scene before he was quite closer to him. So I think there are a few, let's say, blocking issues, I guess.
Production-based stuff, yeah, I think was made. But overall, visually and the sound, it was pretty solid. You know, it's a well-built film.
Sure, yeah. I mean that's like I said, it's Huston's first effort at directing, and I think he's done a pretty good job. This is a guy who's done films like Treasure, Sierra Madre, Key Largo, African Queen, The Man Who Would Be King. He's produced a lot of good stuff. And a couple of talented kids. Angelica Houston's his daughter, and Danny Houston's his son. Did you know these?
I don't know either of those.
Okay. Okay. Angelica Houston's getting on a bit now, but Danny Houston's still going around. I think he was in The Proposition with Guy Pearce. Remember that film? The Aussie film?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
No, not really. I'll play along. No.
You're right. Sure. Mm-hmm.
No, I haven't seen what year was that one?
Proposition about 15 years ago, I guess.
Okay.
That's a good film, though. Yeah, I don't really have much else to say about this, but I would recommend Parizad. You definitely do see Casablanca. That's a bit better than this, and it's actually got Bogart and Peter Lorre, the little guy that speaks like this, and Gutman as well. He's in it too.
Really?
Okay.
So, yeah, they all turn.
Yeah,
up
I mean,
again.
look,
And-
I thought they all did a really good job in terms of their performances. It was just parts of the movie really did not age well.
No, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was trying to count how many locations or settings there were, and it's really just it's offices and apartments mostly, isn't it? In this,
Yeah.
and people
Yeah, there's
talking
very
to each
little.
other.
There's one scene where he's in a cab and he's trying to lose that tail, and that's
Yeah.
about it.
Trying to lose that tail. You're sounding like the film now of Parizad.
I think
Hey, this will get you in salad with your boss.
we should not forget the burning ship scene as well.
That's right.
Yeah, true.
Down on the dock. I mean, yeah, and the staggering into the office captain who had never appeared before. It was a little bit abrupt, wasn't it? Who's this guy? You know, that was I was a little bit surprised there.
I was a little confused at around that point.
Yeah, I mean, I reckon it's if for nothing else, you can understand it a bit more. Watch it a second or third time, but yeah, I mean, there are probably better things to do. Yeah. All right. Well, guys, thank you. On that note, thanks for coming today. Talk to you next time.
Thank you.
Cheers,
Bye.
guys. Bye.
Come closer. I want to talk to you. I'm going to tell you an astounding story. The story of the Maltese Falcon. 600 years, the Falcon has carried the mystery of a fabulous wealth under its grotesque wings. I could tell you 1,000 tales of the men and women who have hunted this evil bird. But every story has the same ending. Murder. Listen to these incredible people, all consumed by their passionate greed for the Maltese Falcon.
Oh, that you haven't seen before. No, I haven't.
Yeah. Get the name right, please. It's
You mean you haven't seen?
You mean maybe Parizad and I need to sync up and both go in a really bored voice. You mean you haven't seen?